Okay, and thank you for joining. We have some changes to our grant cycle this round, but we always try to just not change too much. We don't want to make things more complicated than they need to be. So hopefully these are all good changes and things that will streamline the process a little bit for everybody. And so Kelly, if you can pull up the PowerPoint presentation, we'll get started with that. And feel free to, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to raise your hand. So you can use the icon at the bottom to raise your hand, or you can even just speak up and say, I have a question, and we'll make sure that we try to get to those as we move along. And then there also will be time for questions at the end. So I'll make sure that we can stay on until all the questions have been answered. So let's start off talking about Legacy Foundation's grant-making priorities and strategy. So for those of you who may not be familiar, Legacy Foundation is the community foundation for Lake County. And so we seek to support nonprofit organizations that are working to make Lake County a better place to live. So the organizations that most of you who are on the call, I'm sure, are representing are all out there doing the work day to day, and our job is to support you. And so we want to enhance the effectiveness of nonprofits through improving capabilities, through providing resources, technical assistance, knowledge, training. And by doing that, we're strengthening and empowering nonprofits, neighborhoods, and individuals to collectively transform Lake County. So going into this, and I'm going to actually just read this entire statement because this was our, as we looked at the end of 2020 and everything that had transpired and how we were going to be responding to that in 2021. This is something that we had decided, as our board of directors and leadership at Legacy Foundation, was important to make sure that we took a stand and had some sort of statement when it came to our grants specifically. So for more than 25 years, Legacy Foundation's grants have invested in strengthening the social fabric of our communities. In 2021, Transform Lake County grants will continue to support our communities with a sharpened focus on the most pressing challenges our community is facing today: the impact of COVID-19, systemic racism and racial injustice, and the underinvestment and lack of infrastructure in under-resourced and marginalized communities across Lake County. This funding opportunity recognizes that deeply entrenched inequities mean that our current challenges and resulting traumas are disproportionately impacting some populations and communities. So when we look at our values and commitments, so moving kind of building on that and expanding a little bit, we are committed to funding across Lake County, and we give high priority investments to projects or programs that look to address issues at their root cause. And so, we don't want to continue taking a Band-Aid approach to everything and just having to keep investing year after year in that Band-Aid approach, but how can we collectively really look at how do we address the root cause of these issues and start trying to address that root cause so that we can empower our communities. And so we do give priority to projects or organizations that are really taking that approach. And that also demonstrates strong community support and planning and wise stewardship of funds. We believe that impactful, creative, and sustainable solutions come from people closest to the issues being addressed and organizations trusted by the community. And so we want to make sure that you as an organization are involving the clients that you're serving, the communities that you're serving, the communities where you're located, in the solutions to the issues. Are they involved in the planning process? Are they involved in trying to develop the solutions and looking at what are the problems and how can we work together to create a sustainable and meaningful change? Resident leadership development. So encourage and fund initiatives to give residents opportunities to build relationships and have a voice in their communities. Grassroots grant making and participatory philanthropy, which is giving the power to spending to the power of spending to the people that it's supposed to help. And that kind of goes back to how are people involved in determining what are some of the solutions, how are they involved in the planning process, in the conversations that are happening, in determining what impact our dollars are going to have. And if we can be working with organizations and with you as nonprofits in reaching out to those clients, and if your grant proposal helps to incorporate some of that feedback, then that's something that we would give priority to looking at. What is the process and how have you been working with your community as an organization? Place-based impact. So we're continuing as a community foundation. Our priority is quality of place. And so some, corporate or private or family foundations that you may be familiar with, maybe have an area of interest that is a focus like technology or environment or a specific thing like that. Ours is place. And so we're looking at quality of place in Lake County, Indiana. And that really covers the full spectrum, though, of people and services that are needed, whether it's environment or seniors or youth or healthcare. So really looking at the full spectrum of services. Resource leveraging. And so we will prioritize opportunities that can attract additional funding. So if our funding can be used as whether it's a pilot project that would be able to help set the stage to be able to bring in other funders, or funding that may be able to help launch something larger or attract other investments, then that's something that would be appealing to us. And IDEA, which is inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Of course, that needs to be interwoven into whatever you're doing. So from your services that you're providing to the leadership, to your policies and how you're approaching hiring and working with clients and staff in the community. And so getting more this is just a little snapshot of priorities. So some of it is what we've already discussed in the previous slides, just in a easier to look at format. But some priority areas that we have are organizations with a budget under $2 million. Since we really want to make sure that our dollars are impactful and grassroots and focused on our local communities. That's something that's important. The proposed request aims to address the issue at its root source or root cause. Organizations that have not received consecutive grants from Legacy Foundation in recent years. So we don't commit to multi-year funding. And so if an organization is proposing an idea that would require multi-year funding, then that's something that you would want to take a step back and look at and see how can this be sustainable without a multi-year commitment from Legacy, and can we be able to bring in other funders, or are there other ideas to be able to make that sustainable? Innovative and new ideas. Keep in mind our grants committee is reading a lot of applications each review cycle. And so what will make your idea stand out? What will make it innovative or something that they haven't already read? Proposals that will help to improve services or eliminate duplication. What are you proposing to do to make things better? Whether it's better in how you're approaching the services or to be able to streamline what you're doing. If you can help implement a strategic plan. We want to see that there has been some sort of planning process or thought behind what you're proposing. Proposals that are community driven include outreach and involvement. We've already talked about that a little bit. if you can use legacy funding to leverage additional resources, and incorporating IDEA. So it's not a requirement that you check every single one of these boxes. It's just, these are things that as our committee is looking over the proposals and the requests that we receive, things that will help to prioritize some of the projects. Any questions yet?
No.
All right, we'll keep on going.
Right.
So the application must be able to demonstrate that the organization has the capacity to carry out the proposed work. So if it's a smaller organization or a volunteer-driven organization, make sure that you are clear in your application and in your proposal that you have the commitment from the volunteers, or you have the track record from volunteers and from organizing them to being able to do what you say you're going to do. This is one area that I sometimes see, a weakness in proposals, or that I've seen proposals get declined because it's maybe a small volunteer organization, which is great, and we support those, and I love working with them, but it's sometimes it can just be biting off more than you can chew at once with a commitment of the volunteer resources. And so unless you really have that commitment to being able to carry out the work that's being proposed, and some sort of track record and being able to do that, then that's something that could end up, being a weakness in the proposal. But if you have the commitment, then that's great, and that's really a strength. So you just want to be able to demonstrate that. That the project is clearly defined with timeline and action steps. So another thing that's really important, really the what of your project, right? Being able to say, what are you going to do and how? Which is so important. And that's another kind of common mistake that I'll see, is not really being clear. I've seen organizations that, in the what are you going to do and how, they'll just kind of repeat their mission statement. And that doesn't give us a clear idea of what is the project that you're seeking funding for. So you want to be really clear with that, that the funding from legacy will be impactful. So that we want to know that our dollars will actually make a difference. It's that the budget is clearly defined and costs are reasonable. So if you're asking for $15,000, make sure that you break that down for us and tell us, why are you requesting $15,000? What are you going to purchase with that money, and how did you arrive at that cost? That there are clear and achievable outcomes. And so we don't want to see that that your outcome is to make Lake County a better place to live, right? We want to see something more specific than that. We want to see that 100 youth will receive mentoring services for over 200 hours, during this 12-month period. And that these youth will be surveyed on the impact of those mentoring sessions, and 80% of the youth will report positive, school outcomes from that, or something that's more specific than just we want to transform lives. So really, be specific and tell us what exactly is it that you're going to do, and what are your measurable outcomes. That the project is sustainable without requiring ongoing funding in future years. So looking at that sustainability piece, and that, so if you're requesting something like funding for rent or for a salary that would be an ongoing cost, we really want to know then, that there's, after that 12-month period, that you'll be able to continue that with another funding source, because otherwise you might be in a position after 12 months where, if you've moved into a new office space and you don't have any other funding sources for that rent, then that could put you in a worse off position, because you'll end up having to leave there and waste all that time and money. So if there is something that you're looking at that is requiring ongoing commitment of those costs, how is it sustainable? and that the necessary collaborations have been established and formalized with attached documentation. And so when we say necessary collaborations, we're really looking at the ones that are needed for your project to be successful. So if you're saying that we are going into George Washington Elementary School to provide services, then we need to know that you've talked to George Washington Elementary School and that they've committed to it. Because otherwise, if you wait until after you get the grant, sometimes those school partnerships can take quite a while to formalize, and you'll find out after the fact that it won't work out for whatever reason. And then here you have this grant funding that you can't use. And so, we want to make sure that if it's something that is really needed, if there's a partnership that's a key element of that proposal, that there's some sort of letter, memorandum of agreement, something attached stating that that organization or school has agreed to that partnership. So a little bit more about the outcomes. We look at both value in both qualitative and quantitative goals. Qualitative, explain what you will do and how you will do it, express the impact to be made, and be specific. And so that can really get into the stories, the personal impact that you plan on making in people's lives. And then quantitative is the statistics. And so showing the scale of impact, the numbers of lives that you will be impacting, the numbers of clients that you will be serving, and express the desired outcome. So some community philanthropy outcomes, because community philanthropy is kind of a newer term that we're using. It's been around in, with foundations for a while, but looking at as part of our grant making process, it's something I would say as a term newer that we've been looking at, but really we've been doing it for years, and so have you, most of you on the call, as organizations. And so it's not going to be a big change to the way that we're doing things. It's really just how we're really the lens that we're looking at it through and the terminology that we're using it. And so an example of some community philanthropy outcomes would be looking at our diverse residents gaining skills and knowledge as being civic leaders through skill surveys. And this is just an example of, if there was a specific project that really focused on community philanthropy, an example of what kind of outcomes you could track. Volunteerism, so you can look at how many residents are volunteering and working together. Are more residents donating together and setting community plans? And are organizations, government agencies, and institutions listening to and prioritizing citizen-led projects and issues?
Geneva.
And I paid that.
Okay.
We got 100 and
All right, next slide. So in the past, we had Transform Lake County, and then as a separate application, we had Thriving Hobart Seniors. So we are now going to be combining those grants into one application. And then as an added bonus, we have Women in Philanthropy, which will also be opening up their application, and you can apply for the Women in Philanthropy grant through this application as well. So you will only be applying for and submitting one application. And then on our end, then we will take a look at it as legacy staff and determine, does your application qualify under Transform Lake County, under Thriving Hobart Seniors, or under Women in Philanthropy? And this is really just to make it easier for the organization so that we don't have 3 separate applications out there, and then you have to, and if your application might kind of fit under Women in Philanthropy and maybe fits under Transform Lake County, then you'd have to fill out both applications to see if you might get, one of those grants. And so you just go ahead and submit the one application, and then we'll determine where it might qualify. And we could end up partially funding you out of multiple sources as well, which is another added benefit of being able to do it this way, is that, you know, we could use some funds from Thriving Hobart Seniors and some funds from Transform Lake County to be able to add to the grant amount. So for Transform Lake County, we still have the 2 grant cycles per year. The ones that we're discussing now is due November 1st, and notification will come out around mid-December. Thriving Hobart Seniors is specifically to provide seniors in Hobart with opportunities to increase their quality of life. And so I would say, you know, I'd recommend don't change your proposal to try to fit within that context. Just, you know, whatever it is that you're planning on doing and that your organization is proposing, go ahead and submit that application. And if it falls within that category, then we'll go ahead and flag it and, you know, pull it aside for that. And then Women in Philanthropy is to address the root causes of disparities in income and or healthcare, and include support for under-resourced and systemically disadvantaged women or girls. So the Transform Lake County grant, the range of that grant, which I see isn't on the slide, but it's from $2,000 to $25,000 as well. So same amount range as Thriving Hobart Seniors. And then the Women in Philanthropy grants go up to $15,000. And we also right now, and this is a different application just because this opportunity is so specific and targeted, but it is on our website right now. And if you're interested, we currently have open our Informed and Engaged Urban Communities grant opportunity. That is due November 5th. And the purpose of that grant is to attract and retain talent, increase opportunity, and promote civic engagement in Gary. And specifically, they are looking at digital community engagement for that. And so how can you really engage the residents and the citizens through digital engagement focused on community revitalization and community involvement? And so that one really is specific, but if you have any ideas or thoughts or interest in applying for that, please take a look at our website, and you can go to the grants tab, and there's full description on what we're looking for with that opportunity. And then currently we have sponsorships. The event's closed due to COVID. We hope to open that up soon.
Kelly, I have a question.
Yeah.
Be informed and engaged urban communities. Now, is that a separate application, or is that the same as the others?
That is a different application form. Yeah. So you'll see that. You can see that on our website. You'll log into the same place as you would to be able to apply for Transform Lake County. But then it's a different application form because it's the questions are just so specific to that opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Move on. So the review process is that staff and the grant committee review the applications and make recommendations to the board of directors. And then the board of directors reviews and votes on all final funding decisions. The awards granted can range from $2,000 to $25,000. And then funding decisions are communicated to the applicants via email about 6 weeks after the application due date. And our grant committee and our board of directors are made up of volunteer community members, community leaders. And so we, have a wide range of people representing a range of experience and professional expertise that really have their pulse on the needs and organizations in Lake County. So we have a really great team that looks, really dives deep into the applications and what the needs are. So some things we do not fund. We do not fund for-profit businesses. So you have to, if you're applying, you have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. We do not fund individuals. We do not fund scholarships to colleges and universities through our grants because we do have scholarships available for that. We don't fund a proposal that promotes a particular religion, political affiliation, or lobbying. And so we will fund churches or faith-based groups if it is a nonpartisan project or idea or initiative that they're doing that would really involve outreach into the community. So if it's a church that is running a food pantry that is open to the community, then that would be something that we would fund. So those types of nonpartisan things that are done within faith-based groups. We will not fund a proposal that discriminates based on age, race, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. We will not fund post-expenditure requests or debt, fundraisers, capital campaigns, or publications, film, or media produced for resale for profit.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because my business was started in 2018 and I didn't file taxes until 2019. And that grant application is asking me to upload 2018 taxes, but I didn't file until 2019. How would that work out for me?
So you filed, did you get an audit or you filed in?
No, I didn't file until 2019.
Can you attach your 2019?
Yes.
Okay, that would be fine. Yeah. So I don't think we specify the year on the application.
Okay.
We just ask for your most recent.
Okay. All right.
So we do not fund public, private, or charter K through 12 schools or academies. But we will fund nonprofits that are working to engage in partnerships or work with schools. We have over 100 schools in Lake County, and so unfortunately, we just can't support, the schools themselves. But we're happy to work with the organizations if they're providing services that are benefiting the schools, and especially if you can do something that would collaborate with multiple schools, then that's even better to spread out the impact.
I have another question. I have a couple of projects going on for 2022. Should I only select one project or can I select two? Complete an application for both projects and whichever one goes through, if either will be selected. What should I do?
That's a good question. So I would recommend if they don't fall really under one project idea, I would recommend just applying for one and really being focused on that, because sometimes the application can get confusing if it looks like there's too much in it and you're trying to do too much and apply for multiple projects within one application. So I would suggest just really applying for one project and really focusing on that so that it can be the, what, when, how, and how much can be really clear.
We have one in January, and another one, our summer enrichment program, which is in June. So that's why I was asking.
Is it the same program that's just happening twice?
Two different programs, but they both involve school children, yeah.
Okay. And we can talk in more detail then to find out if it's like part of if it's part of like a youth enrichment umbrella, then maybe you can apply as part of a youth enrichment grant. And then there's just two cohorts to it, the winter and the summer. And so that can be, I think, part of the same project. But, if it's a completely different concept, then I would say you'd want to do two, or not two, but one. Just apply for the one thing, and feel free to reach out to me after if you want to kind of brainstorm in more detail.
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that I really appreciate the way it's being done this time. I have the type of proposals that cross lines. I will have someone maybe from Hobart call and say, I hear you doing this. Can you come over and do this? And here I am with some seniors. And then here I am with this other, and it's all under what I do, but it tends to cross lines. And your granting process, I like the fact that you guys will say, hey, she really should be here, because I'm doing women. I'm going into a home where there's nothing but women, and they, you know, and that's under another one. So I like this. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, hopefully this will cut back on some of the confusion of, should we apply for this or this? And then, or even worse, having to apply for 2 or 3 different things and, take up more of your time. So grant requests, as I mentioned, I'm happy to meet with anybody to discuss your proposal. And especially if we haven't worked with your organization in the past, then we strongly do recommend having that meeting, because it's really helpful to be able to learn more about you and what you're doing and the impact your organization is having. And there's only so much that can be said on a grant application. And so the meetings really help for me to get a better understanding, and then to bring that to the committee and to be able to convey what the organization has been doing and the impact that they're having. So that's always really helpful. And then only one grant can be awarded in a 12-month period. So if you have received a previous grant from Legacy Foundation, you would be eligible to apply for this grant cycle as long as your grant was awarded before December of 2020 and you have finished your final report for your previous grant. So you want to make sure that you have completed it, closed it out, finished your final report so that you're eligible to apply for a new grant. So I've covered some of these mistakes already, but here's just kind of a quick list of some of the top 10 grant writing mistakes that I see. So not following the instructions or the guidelines of the grant proposal, not answering the questions asked. And so just like I said, be clear. If we're asking, what is your timeline and how are you going to do that? Just make sure we don't need a bunch of superfluous fluff in there.
Okay.
Just really clear on what is it you're going to do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to spend the money? That the purpose of the grant is not clear. So we want to make sure it's clear that what is the purpose of the funding request. Grammar and typos. Have someone look at your proposal, make sure somebody, maybe someone else can take a look at it, or you can cut and paste the text into, or write it in Word first and then move it into the document so that they can review, so that you can do a spell check first and make sure everything looks good. Jargon and catchphrases, we all do it. I know I have so much community foundation jargon that I say when I'm talking and the acronyms that I use. But keep in mind, the grant committee is not always going to know what your industry's acronyms are. And so just kind of avoid some of that or make sure that it's clear and that you are to the point with that. Unclear budget. So that's a mistake that we see, is not being clear on the amount that you're requesting and what you're going to use it for. So we want to see that if you're looking to buy, 10 laptops at $1,000 a piece, make sure you say that 10 laptops times $1,000 is $10,000 for laptops. So that it's really clear that that's what you're looking to do and that it makes sense. Like, we don't want to see that you're looking, that you want to buy 5 laptops at $4,000 a piece, because our committee will be like, that's kind of expensive for laptops. Why are you requesting $4,000 each for laptops? Unless there's a reason that you really need state-of-the-art laptops, they're actually going to look at that and wonder if that's like an inflated cost, if you could get it cheaper, that the objectives do not match the problem. And so we want to see solutions that actually address what is the problem that you're looking to solve. that the necessary collaborations have not been established, which we've already talked about that a little bit. That the organization lacks the capacity to carry out the proposed activities. And that can be in either through the not having the volunteers or the staff like we've talked about already, but it could also be that, let's say you're asking for $15,000 from Legacy, and this is a project that would cost $500,000 and none of the other funding sources are in place yet. And so that's something that we would say, look at that and be like, well, do you have the capacity to raise that remaining $485,000? Do you have the other funders committed? Or is this something that maybe isn't ready yet to be able to happen, and that there needs to be some more groundwork laid down? And then that kind of goes into the next slide too. The additional funding has not been secured. The grants committee review, we're going to Kelly, is that you now?
Oh, oops, I think so.
The grant committee review process?
We'll share again. Yep, that's me. It was a mislabeled slide. It should be application
Okay. I
process.
was like, wait a minute. All right, good. So we're moving over to Kelly now so that she can show you our new application system.
All right, so we're going to get away from the PowerPoint and go into the actual application. So let's give me 1 second. It looks like Kelly, I think there was something in the chat. If you want to check that real quick while I get our.
I am typing now.
All right, let's see if it's ready now. There we go. All right, so once you're ready to apply, can you see the screen?
Yes.
It's up now. Okay, so once you're ready to apply, you're just going to come here to our website and click on the grants login button. The new software that we have seems very easy, very straightforward. I can't make that go away. Stop that. No, I don't want to continue.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see for the bar at the top, I can't see my screen.
We'll stay out of here.
You've got some kind of spam up there, Kelly.
I know, I can't see the X to get rid of it. There we go. We'll move that. Okay. All right. Are we back on the right screen now?
We're on Legacy's home screen.
There we go. Very good. All right. So the new software that we have, it's very straightforward, seems very easy to use. So hopefully everybody will like the new features that we have. So if it's your first time applying for an application in the new system, which it will be for most of you, you'll come here and create an account. If you've already been in and dabbled and looked around, then you would just enter your information, address, and password, and just click to log on. But since we're new, we're going to create a new account for ourselves. What is with the spam today? All right. Okay. So we're going to fill out just the required information, and I'm going to go through it just so that we can get into the real application. There is a feature here. 5, 6, 7. If you enter an EIN number that's already listed in our system, then it will pop up this message for you to let you know to contact me. And this just helps us to keep the system from getting logged down with multiple accounts for each organization. So if you see that, just let me know and we'll figure that out before you proceed. And then just for speed, I'm only doing the items that are required, but we do encourage you to make sure to fill out all the information because there are some nice features that our review committee can see and for you when all of that information is filled in. Okay. And moving on. And for the next screen, you can copy your address information from the previous screen, just save a little time. And then we're putting in our own information here. If you have a title that you go by, Sister Doctor, we have a space for that. So we make sure that we're addressing you correctly. And this will be the longest, most fun part of our process. Oops, telephone number. And if you do get that error message, even once you correct it, that red bar is not going to go away. So just know that you may have fixed it, but that red bar will stay there. And so now it wants to know if we're the ED. So the information, the name and information that we just entered in, is that for the executive director? If it's not, then it's going to give you an opportunity to fill out that person's information, just so that we can make sure that when our new systems talk together and that we create a profile for you, if you're a new organization, that we have a complete profile with all of the most up-to-date information. If you were the, why did you go in there? What?
You might have a virus.
I don't know what is going on. All right. Okay, sorry, guys. Try and be quick. During all of my test runs this morning, it went perfectly fine. It's just decided to wait until you're all here and watching, and then it's going to cause a problem.
That always happens.
I know, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right, I think it will let me go with not real information here, just to speed it up. So let's try that. Almost done. Okay. Okay, and so if we're not the executive director, it will give us the opportunity to enter that information. If we are the ED, then if you have additional information, prefix, suffix, or professional title, you can enter that. It's not required, so it's fine if you don't. And then we need to create a password for ourselves, and you can see the requirements that are listed there. Okay. And when you're creating that account information, it is really important that you make sure that all of that information is filled in and accurate, because we don't ask for that anywhere else in the application. That information is carried over and becomes part of the actual application. And with this system, we have the ability to send out a good number of automated emails. So when we are getting to the point of a week or so before an application is due, a day before, reminders for follow-up forms, if you've been awarded, the system can send those out automatically for us. So here we have the opportunity to send ourselves an email and just make sure that our filters are set correctly on the organization level. Did it? All right. To make sure that it's checking everything correctly. You don't have to check, but it is a good idea. So once we get that account created, it'll bring us here to the main kind of dashboard screen that has a list of everything that you're looking to apply for. And so as Kelly mentioned earlier, the night application, that's in our old system, which is in Community Force. So if you're interested in applying for that, just let us know and we can help get you to the right place. Because of the transition between the two systems, we're currently using both of them. Okay. So if you're looking for that night opportunity, that's in our old system, and we'll be happy to help get you there.
That's right. I'm sorry, I did speak incorrectly about that. You can also find the link through our website. Yes. So if you go to the night opportunity, the Informed and Engaged Urban Communities, and click on the link to apply, it'll take you to the correct application. So we are between systems there. And I also, sorry, Kelly, to interrupt, but since it's on the screen now, I also want to mention that we have a diversity and inclusion training opportunity with in partnership with the Urban League of Northwest Indiana. And so we are asking, as part of our application, about your organization's diversity and inclusion and your approach. And so it wouldn't be fair for us to ask that without at least providing the opportunity to be able to receive assistance if needed. And so that is something that we're offering. If you're interested, you can apply for, it's not a financial grant award, it's a training award. And so through this opportunity, we would have you we would support you working with the Urban League to get your staff and board to be trained on DEI.
Okay.
And so if you're looking at this and you say, you know, gosh, I got an email from Legacy. They said there was this grant opportunity and I'm not seeing it here. Go back and check that email again. It's possible that we sent you an access code. And the system gives us the opportunity, if we have a very specific targeted application, it is only for libraries, it is only for nonprofits working in a very specific sector, we can send you a code and you would just enter the code here. And once you click to enter the code, then that opportunity will populate for you, just for things that we don't want just anyone to be able to apply for. So that's something that we are going to try and be using in the future. So we're ready. We want to apply for the Transform Lake County. The preview button on this side, that's only going to give us a look at the eligibility questions. We have to complete those eligibility questions before getting into the actual application. So if you would like to see them beforehand, you can preview them here. But since we know we want to apply, we're going to answer these questions quickly so that we can get into the actual application.
These are standard best practice questions for nonprofit organizations. And so I often get, well, what if I answered no to some of these questions? And so if you do answer no, then I would suggest, that you take a step back and, figure out, is your board meeting regularly? Do you have these conflict of interest and policy in place? Do you have a budget in place that's approved by the board? And if you don't, then, maybe that's something that we can make recommendations to you on how to add to your organization's process and policies.
So once we've submitted our eligibility, it will show us a list of applications that we're eligible for. If we had multiple ongoing opportunities, then those would be listed here. On the other hand, if you did not pass the eligibility quiz, then that would also give you a notice here. If you feel that you reached that in error, then reach out to me. I can look at the answers to the questions and we can look at those and talk about those. And if deemed appropriate, we can reopen the application and reset it for you. So once we agree we're in the right place, this is what we want, we're going to continue. And then one more time, we really do want to apply for this application. So here on the start of the application, here at the top, you can see this is where the information that we entered when we create an account, this is where it puts it. And so this is where the grants committee will find your information and give the basics of your organization. If you look and find that something is incorrect, you can use the little pencil icon here to edit your personal information. It's not going to let you do that for the org side though, because the two systems talk to one another. It doesn't want us to get into a situation where you got in and you updated your mailing address and that didn't transfer over to our financial system. And so we end up mailing a check to the wrong location. So if you need to change any information about the org, then give me a call and I can go in and update that for you. The system has a nice feature where it can talk to GuideStar using the EIN number that you entered. So you can copy certain questions, you can copy different pieces from GuideStar, or if you needed to go in and just see, what does my public profile show on GuideStar, then there's buttons here that you can click to do that. It won't be of help for this first application because we don't have any historical data for you in the system. But if you apply for a grant this cycle, and then you want to apply again in the future for another Transform Lake County, you will have the ability to copy your answers from a previous application into the new one. A nice time saver. You can get all of those basics down and then go in and edit from there. So hopefully in our next training for the next cycle, we'll actually have some data in there and can show you how that feature is going to work. But just know it's there for the future. And then you can also invite a collaborator. Say the financial piece, the budget, that's just not you. You don't want anything to do with that. So we want to invite someone else to handle that piece for us. We can enter their email address, decide what permissions we want them to have. Can they just look at it? Can they look at it and edit it for us? And can they do everything? Look at it, edit it, and submit for us. So choose which one you would like, send them a short message, and click the invite button. That will send an email to them. When they open that email up, there'll be a link that takes them directly into the application. They just have to enter their first and last name and put a password in that they create, and then they will have access to everything that you've uploaded, your documents, all of your answers, and can help you out. So that's nice. Even if you just want someone to take another look at the application before you push the submit button, that feature is there. And if you have any questions about how the collaborator feature works, there are tutorials that you can either look at the written tutorial or the video and answer some questions on how that works. The person that you invite will also have access to these tutorials when they log in. And then if you have any questions about how it works, just let us know and we can help. So as we go down, the due date and the time are noted here. Just make sure you pay attention to that. The application will automatically close itself at 5 o'clock on the 1st, and we can't reopen it for you. So it will close itself off, and then everything will be ready for us to take over and start getting those ready for the grants committee to review.
And even if your power goes out at 4:55, we can't reopen it, or, so make sure that you're submitted with enough time so that if there is a power outage or whatever happens, that, we don't have any of those problems.
You can't find your application because all the pop-ups that are showing up on your computer, anything like that. So if you'd like to see a list of the questions in the application, you can click on the question list here. This one is not going to put your answers in it. It's just going to be a list of each of the questions. If you need a printout with your questions answered, you can right-click and choose to print. And then once everything has been entered and you've clicked save at the bottom, then there is a separate box that will pop up here that says application packet, and that will do the same thing. Just depends on kind of the timing in the process when you would like to see a printout. So we ask you to title your program. This title will carry throughout the application. It will also follow through if you're awarded a grant to any grant award forms, follow-up forms, all the way through the whole process. So just think about what that title is that you would like to have. This system uses characters instead of word counts. So we've provided what the system uses as their guidelines here is just referenced for you. And then this little symbol here, that means that this is one of those questions where the system can go out into GuideStar and bring back a piece of information for you. So as long as that piece exists in your GuideStar profile and you've entered your EIN number correctly, it can bring it in for you. You don't have to use it. You can type just normally, but that feature is there if you would like. The system allows what it calls rich text, which means that if you are using Word and you have formatting with bullets, bold, underline, all of those sorts of fun formats, when you copy and paste, it will bring those in with it. So copying and pasting is just fine. And then the limits of the answers are listed below. We're not going to go through all of the questions. We'll just highlight a few things as we go by.
And as we're highlighting, I will add that I do listen to all of you. And so based on feedback that we've received, there were some difficulties that people were having with do you have another to add questions, how we used to have, list your outcome. Do you have another? Do you have another? And the structure of that. And so we have kind of combined those so that it's just one question, list your outcomes. And I know we had that for multiple questions. And then the other thing that we changed is we have increased the space that you have, whether it's characters or words, the space that you have to answer a lot of the questions, because there were challenges with the word counts that we had offered before. So you should have enough room now to be able to answer what you want to.
Right. And then we've also expanded the selections that you have to categorize your agency and your service categories. Kelly, do you want to talk about any of the reasoning or anything behind this change?
Yeah, so these are for our internal tracking only. We don't, you won't receive priority funding based on what your service category is. It's not like there's a certain amount of money in each pot or anything like that. It's really just so that, you know, we can periodically look and say, how much are we getting in requests for each of these areas? How much of our funding is going to each of those areas? And in order to do that, we really need you to pick just one for the
Top one here,
service.
agency.
Yeah, so for the primary service category, that's what is your organization service category? And actually, Kelly, this is wrong, I think. So the grant should be so the first one should be the grant request. And so what is the service category for the grant request? And then the second one is the organization. And so what is your category for your organization? And for that, you can pick up to 2. And we'll fix that top one so that it reflects that that's for your grant request.
So when you're uploading files, those do need to be uploaded as a single document. Multiple pages will just copy over one another. So make sure you do that as one page.
Mm.
And moving on down here, we do require the use of Legacy's budget template. So if you click on the link there, it will bring up our budget form.
Mm.
And you're welcome to, as you go through this, if you see something like, well, we don't have any food costs, that doesn't relate to our project, you're welcome to delete that or change it to something that makes a little more sense for your project and what you're doing.
Okay.
You can customize it a little bit. Just make sure that the amounts that you're saying that you're requesting, that matches what you put into the application, that all of those things kind of line up there. And then any footnotes that you want to add, there is space. Kelly, you want to mention anything about the changes we made to the form?
Hopefully it'll be easier. So yeah, I think it's more clear with just the two columns, and yeah, so hopefully that'll be more straightforward.
So once you've filled out all that information, you'll just want to save it onto your computer, and then there's a place to upload that document here. Here's what we were mentioning before about really spelling out what the money is going to be used for that you're asking, based on, you know, so many hours at how much per hour, or if it's equipment, how many pieces of equipment and how much money each. The committee really does look very closely at this section. It gives them the opportunity to say, well, you know, unfortunately, we can't fund this whole grant for whatever reason, but we really like the project. We want to take care of the home health care equipment. And so they can elect to just fund a portion of it. So that really does make a difference to them. If you have any estimates, those are super helpful. How do we know that this equipment costs $150 or $25? So if you've got those estimates, upload those there for us.
Mm.
And then this is the new section that's going to determine what bucket of money we look at internally to fund your project. So nothing that has to do with whether you're qualified or not, no impact on your proposal, but these top questions, those flag for us internally that you're a candidate for the Women in Philanthropy grant. And then the Hobart Senior question obviously marks for us that you are a candidate for the Thriving Hobart Senior.
And it's okay to say no. I mean, our largest source of funding is Transform Lake County. It's not Thriving Hobart Seniors, and it's not Women in Philanthropy. So don't try to bend to fit those if it doesn't fit your project. You know, it's the primary, you know, most of the grants will be coming from Transform Lake County. And it's okay if you say do not apply to those, you know, it's not going to be any points against your organization.
Oh, still a big bucket you're in.
I have a question. So is there a limit to the amount of grants you provide? So we're not competing against each other, basically. We're just trying to do the best we can to get a grant based on our information. But do you select what, 10, 20, 30, or just depends on which ones you feel are?
Well, there is a limit because, I mean, based on the amount of funding that we have available. And so it is, I mean, it is competitive in that sense that there's always excellent applications every grant cycle that we just can't fund because we don't have enough dollars to be able to support everything that's needed.
And just moving on, plenty of room here to explain your project, tell us what you're doing, why it's important, activities.
And to give a general idea, I mean, usually each grant cycle we fund around $200,000. I would say that's total, that's the average of what we fund each grant cycle. But there's not a certain number of applications that we support.
And here, if you have MOUs or other documents that you want to upload for us so that we know that those partnerships have been worked out, we've got a place to upload those. And then, like Kelly was saying, we want to make sure if it's a project where our money is only a small piece of what you need to complete that project, that you've thought about how that other funding is going to come in. So places to answer about that other funding, and based on your answers, then other questions may populate to give you more room to explain those answers.
I got a direct message question that's probably easier for me to just explain to the group. So it asks, when we're creating the budget, are we only supposed to explain how we're spending legacy funds or organization? So for the budget template, we're looking at how are you spending the legacy funds and how are you spending and what is the project budget? One of the ways that we're looking, hopefully we'll make this easier now with our new application, is for your organization budget, you don't need to try to fit that onto our template anymore. And so the question that asks you to upload your organization budget, you can just upload that in whatever format you already have available and approved for your organization's budget. So our template is only looking at the project itself.
Okay.
And then section here to answer those questions about IDEA, to tell us what your plans are and how you're addressing the IDEA portion of our priorities. Letters of support, other documents that might help us to make a decision, brochures, pamphlets, those kinds of things. And then in this system, it does not give you a moment to review the application before you push submit. If everything that's required has an answer in it and you push submit, it's coming to us. So that's why we've asked you to take a moment to go back through, look at everything, and just to confirm that you understand that once you do push that button, that it is submitted. The application saves in real time. That was an issue we had with the system we used previously, it logging out and not saving things. So that's not going to happen with this, but we do recommend, if you need to pause and come back to the application, that you do push the save button just to make sure that everything is taken care of. So we've submitted an application. We're keeping an eye on our email, and we found out that we have been awarded a grant. So I'm going to switch over to a different portal here to show you. So once you get that email that you've been awarded, you'll log back in and you'll look for the follow-up forms that are here. And this is in my test system, so that's why it says it's past due. But we've taken the statement of conditions completely online. We used to email that to you, and you would upload or give us an electronic signature. Now that's all in the system. So you'll go through and for each of the requirements for the grant, you'll agree to each of them and then sign name, title, and date. So there's nothing to send back to us, and this will just be maintained in the online system here. So once you filled that out, you'll just submit that. And then we also ask that you complete an ACH form. Whenever possible, we are not mailing checks any longer. We're trying to do electronic payments just to keep the speed of that up and make that
Okay.
happen a little faster. So we ask for the banking information and then a copy of the voided check so that we can just make sure that there was no typos when you entered in your numbers. We don't want to pay some different organization other than you. And once we get those two forms submitted, then that will send me a notification in the system to alert me that you're now ready for payment. So any questions on that very quick application tutorial there?
I'll just add that, I appreciate everybody's feedback that I get and I've gotten over the years, when we do listen to when there's concerns or feedback about the applications or the questions. And so this new one is a learning process for us here. And so we, maybe having to change things as we go or tweak them. And so if there's anything, any problems or challenges that you're having, feel free to let us know because we want that feedback. And I put a link to be able to schedule a meeting with me in the chat box. And so if you are interested in scheduling a time to talk, feel free to use that link and I'd be happy to meet. And Tom, just to your comment, it talks to our finance system, which is amazing. So we're really excited about that. All right, any questions? Well, thank you all for your time. Sorry for running a few minutes over here. We tried our best to fit it into an hour. I think we're getting better. So have a great evening, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, good night.
Hmm.